Ho ho ho! Another day, another dollar. So here I am again. Following on from my upload of was it 2 days ago? Where I believe I was talking about um in this vlog series for nobody in particular. I was talking about several things. In particular uh, the gender ideology as it skews towards pro-trans ideology and hundreds of different genders. So yeah, I mean the point of the spiel wasn't to dig out anybody really, or to what's the word, um, or to put any particular point of view across, because I'm kind of non-committal on the subject. It doesn't affect me directly. It affects me indirectly in terms of the freedom of speech issues. Freedom of speech, right? What is happening with that? But it affects me indirectly. I don't know anybody from the community of trans people. Um, I mean, trans is a term. If you go back, I don't know, 30, 40 years, it was a curio thing. You'd rarely come across one in sorry. Well, you'd never really, unless you worked in certain fields like the arts, maybe you'd rarely come across one in your real life. You certainly would rarely see obvious trans people parading sort of in the high street. You wouldn't see men walking around in wearing full makeup, wigs, dresses, high heels, that kind of stuff. It would be very it would be, I suppose, they'd be in the closet, or it would be something you hid from the wider community. But but no, I mean it was a curio thing. I remember, yeah, well, it was probably about 30 years ago when I first heard about um what you call it, genital uh, reassignment. That's what they call it. Or a vaginoplasty. Where, basically where you turn a man's you surgically alter a man's genitalia to make it look like a female genitalia. And I remember once, was it the 90s, Channel 4, I think it was, they showed an entire surgery on some on some documentary program. And I recall briefly watching it out of sort of a morbid curiosity. And yeah, it's not the kind of thing you want to you know stick on while you're eating your cheeseburgers or your takeout. Put it that way. Um, I closed my niece while I was watching it. But anyway, yeah. It was a curio. It was something that just another oddity that you might come across in passing. Browsing the newspaper, flicking through TV channels, what people used to do. But it was never really anything that was really a hot topic for discussion. It wasn't part of the agenda back then. Um, it kind of only really became part of the agenda when first thing obviously we did was we gave all sexual preference minority groups, we gave them all equal standing, in law and excuse me, in law and in the society and all this, and yay, great, fine, perfectly good. I'm all for that. I was always for that. I never wanted to see anybody persecuted on the basis of their sexual preference. With uh, obviously with caveats, as long as it's not anything bordering on the illegal or the totally debasing, I suppose. Although consenting adults can do what you want to each other, I suppose. Um, but anyway, yeah. I mean, let people live, right? Let bygones be bygones. If they're not hurting you, why go for them? There's no reason to, right? But then obviously modern politics and the culture war um, hijacked different agendas to rope them in to a very socialist, left wing, and dangerous militant way of thinking where you promote activism and you shame people into activism, even. You coerce them. And this has basically been the fault or a direct consequence, not the fault. It's a fault of humanity. Um, but it's a direct consequence of lenses that point at our faces, like this one, and which other people rewatch. That's the consequence of that. So as soon as you have a society that's so that's urging so inwardly and putting everything out there unfiltered, although there's a lot of editing that goes on, you won't find any here. But as soon as you have that, then you're opening up a whole can of beans, you know. And I just make my head into a can of beans there, I need a can opener. And anyway, yeah. So you open up those can of beans, and then you find out what's really ticking in people's minds, and you find out that there's a lot of angry people, a lot of disquieted, disaffected, unhappy, angry people who have access to grind, and it's also evident in the age of self-pointed lenses and social media, non-tactile, non-face-to-face, non-person-to-person interactions, just via keyboards and screens. And it was inevitable. There was, it was always going to go down this route. And anyway, so yeah, so there becomes then a generation of people, not just the young people. It affects a lot of different age demographics who become warriors, virtue projecting warriors of social justice, right? And this is typically it's a it's a it's sort of an habitual aspect of the left and the socialists and the liberals. Not yeah, classic liberals. I mean, not so much today's liberals. They're a bit militant, but I mean, projecting virtue so everyone who's watching you can see how virtuous and how good you are. You're the great and the good because that's what you want to project. Because people basically want to be liked. Some people don't care as much. I mean, you've got two sets of people, right? You've got people pleasers and then people displeasers, and some people just want to be contrarians, argumentative. They want to be play devil's advocate because that's what that's what sets their endorphins up. That's what that's what lights them up, right? And then you've got other people who gain immense satisfaction from saying the things that the majority like to hear. You know, drop a comment on YouTube and get 500 likes. Makes them feel great, right? It doesn't matter whether they believe it or not. They'll just say it because they know they'll get a lot of people who will, they'll get a cheer. They'll get a virtual applause, and they'll feel great and popular. You know, and as somebody who was a actually as a profession for a short while, not that it paid a lot, but somebody as a pastime or as a hobby, an interest, used to go on a stage, talk, host, and try to sing, try to play bass guitar, and sing a bit, and all these things that I used to do, right? I think I only ever did it, because I thought chicks might look at me and I might get more, attention. But then I realized there's a lot easier ways to do that. Just be less discerning. Don't be quite so picky. Every hole's a goal. So anyway, yeah, there's other ways to do that. But when I was younger, in my early 20s, my late teens, it seemed to be an avenue which you could hang with, the cool chicks, the pretty girls, and you could get the action if you put yourself out there and you showed enough fear. Just be ballsy, be up front, and But there's something different about the modern generations. The millennials and the Z's, and there's something a little bit different. They all seem to want to be liked, and they can't handle it being criticized or not liked. So if you're in control of your own digital space, your own online domain. Sorry, itchy. And you're basically the way these corporations, tech corporations, the way they set up is that you're in control of your domain. You're the moderator. You're the admin. So basically, it's your space. Get it? My space. And you're the one that makes the rules and decides yay or nay and what goes and who goes there. So what you're basically doing is you're asking people who create their own accounts or content to basically construct their own bubble that is basically just simply comprised of what they want to hear, what they want to project, what they want to edit, if they edit. Some do, some don't. And basically, extraneous noise can just be wiped, deleted. I've lost track of the amount of times I've left comments on YouTube in the past when I used to bother, and it just disappears in 2 seconds, literally, because it doesn't vibe with their narrative or the narrative of the moderator or the people underneath comment. Somebody will say, "Take this comment off. I find it offensive, or I find it disagreeable." And next thing you know, the scared people have wiped your comment off because, I don't know, it's contrarian, or is it controversial? I don't know. Why do comments get wiped off? Everybody's entitled to their opinion, right? Or that's the theory. But anyway, yeah. So all these, I've nearly lost track of where I was going with this. So all these social media accounts that people create, they're writing their own fiction. And it was always gonna end up that way. And anyway, so I'll go back to the beginning of this, because I was gonna finish off basically on what I was saying the other day about the gender ideology movement and the way it's permeated our culture and also our legislature. Um, because once you write laws that prohibit our spoken freedoms and our thought freedoms, i.e., to object to something we don't agree with, or to speak out against something that we disagree with. Once you prohibit that mechanism, i.e., you're not allowed to do it. Once you do that, then you're in big trouble. Just as a society in general, you're in big trouble. And you see it now happening. We're not the state in the UK is trying to basically suppress the people's freedoms in this country to speak out against waves of invaders invading illegal immigrants, basically from France. But they come through France via France, from all sorts of places, and they're trying to suppress. They're trying to suppress the indigenous residents of the UK or the islands of British Isles from basically reacting negatively to that, or saying we don't agree with it and we want it stopped, which the majority do. Can't argue with the numbers. The majority want it stopped because they can see the end game. What's going to happen in our country? I mean, how many people is enough people? Are they ever going to stop coming? No, they're not. Of course, they're not going to stop coming. The only time they'll stop coming is when it's no longer in their interests, i.e., the United Kingdom is so shit and dangerous that they might as well stay in their shithole poverty-stricken countries that they come from, because the UK isn't any better. That's the only way it's going to stop. Unless we get a government with the wherewithal and the will to change a lot of laws and extricate the United Kingdom from basically self-harming human rights legislation that is allowing the invasion of our country and our borders to be non-existent. So until that happens, nothing's going to change. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, to finish off the thing of what I was trying to say about gender ideology. Basically, yeah. I mean, there was a time when I used to be on the side of all these groups. I mean, they call it a community, right? LGBTQIA plus community, and that's another thing. I mean, controlling the language. It's very important. It's very important to the hardcore militant groups, social justice groups, right? By the way, all funded by Soros and his kind. The big corporate billionaires with agendas. Klaus Schwab and all these people. It's all about funding lobby groups, activists, corporations, individuals, everyone from the little YouTube blogger to all the way up to ministers in government. And we see it with the climate agenda. That we're being sold a narrative about it was global cooling, then it was global warming, now it's climate change. As if the climate's never changed in the last 4 billion years. But anyway, the ozone layer Oh, it's fixed now because we stopped using cans of hair CFC carbon fluorocarbons or whatever it was. And we fixed that hole above the North Pole. What a load of bullshit, man. It was nothing to do with fucking cans of hairspray. Oh god, it was a natural consequence of volcanic emissions. But anyway, let's forget that one. All right. Oh, conspiracy theory, climate hoax. But anyway, yeah, it just happened to coincide with a spell in the 1980s where not geothermal, what was it? Fault lines. There were a lot of uh, island eruptions and sea and basically it damaged the ozone layer. Um, and then they tried to say, actually, nah, it's cans of hairspray. Yeah, right. These people have never heard of the biomass principle, right? Which is kind of hilarious because I mean, 500 what is it gigatons of flora and fauna, all producing, um, all with byproduct of carbon dioxide, right? And the human or the man-made and the man, i.e., the biomass of humans, hardly anything, right? The biomass of humans and things made by humans represents 1% of those emissions on a planetary scale. Yeah, 1%. That's our biomass influence, right? Of everything that's alive and producing carbon dioxide. Trees, plants, seaweed, grass, animals, insects. Here's another thing. Another statistic. In the Earth, on the Earth, the biometric weight of all the flies in a single day, one day, 24 hours, all of the flies, different types of flies, all the species of flies that get eaten in 24 hours by all the different species of spiders on the planet, the bio weight of that is more than the biomass of all of the humans on the globe. Yeah, so stick that in your auxiliary feed and smoke it up. That's all for this one.